Joining me now is Naftali Bennett, the former Prime Minister of Israel. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to get your reaction. Of course, President Biden delivered his State of the Union address last night. He did address the war. Let me have you listen to a little bit of what he said and get your reaction on the other side.
Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority.
What do you make of the fact that the president chose this huge platform to seemingly call out the Israeli government? And do you agree with that statement that he just made?
No, I don't. I don't agree. The problem is not the amount of aid going into Gaza. The problem is that Hamas is hijacking that aid, robbing that aid, taking it to itself, and then selling it back in the black market in Gaza at about tenfold the price, and many Gazans can't afford it. So again, we are not using this as a negotiation chip or anything of that sort. The problem is that Hamas is stopping that aid from reaching the people who need that aid, and that's why we have to defeat Hamas, clean Hamas, and then form a new Gaza.
Well, I guess the question is, and the Biden administration would agree with your assessment, what you're saying about Hamas, but the question is, why can't the U.S. and Israel work together on expanding humanitarian access? For example, he announced this new port to get aid into Gaza. Shouldn't the U.S. and Israel be working together on that?
We are. Israel certainly is happy about these elements or any methodology of bringing in food into Gaza. But again, once it reaches Gaza, you have the Hamas terrorists who take over and siphon off a big portion of the food, so some people in Gaza don't get that food. And I want to emphasize, we are talking about a terror government that unfortunately was elected by the people of Gaza in democratic elections. But that's the problem here. We have a terror organization that tells us we want to repeat the murderous massacres of October 7th, go in and rape Israeli women and kill Israeli children and sever heads of Israelis just like we did last time. And that's why we have to eliminate this organization for the benefit of Israelis and the benefit of Gazans. And the best way to solve this problem is to accelerate the defeat of Hamas.
Do you, though, I mean, given the scale of the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding inside Gaza, and I understand what you're saying about defeating Hamas, but does the Israeli government bear some responsibility for that and for the death toll that is mounting? And is there not more that the Israeli government can do to prevent the death toll from rising?
We are bending over backwards to reduce as much as possible the death of civilians. However, Hamas is bending over backwards to increase the number of dead Gaza civilians by denying them food, by hiding behind civilians, sometimes shooting at its own civilians who want to run away from harm's way in areas that we afford them to do that. So you have an organization who is deliberately doing everything to ramp up the number of its own dead people, so then you'll ask me these questions and to apply pressure on Israel. What we need is to finish off Hamas. We're very much making progress, but now we're being stopped to some degree by the international community. This is a very bad idea because Hamas is the problem, not the solution.
How do you respond to President Biden, though, who has said he thinks that Israel can do more?
I think we're doing everything we can. I don't agree with that statement. President Biden is a great friend to Israel, but on this specific issue, I think the best way to make this whole thing go away and solve the problem is to give us the leeway and the backing to finish the job of cleaning up Hamas so everyone in this region can live peacefully, and it is possible.
I would like to talk to you about the discussions that are underway to try to secure the release of more hostages in exchange for a temporary ceasefire. Can you give us a status update? Because our latest reporting is that those negotiations had hit a significant roadblock. Do you think there is any expectation that a deal can be reached by Ramadan, which starts next week?
I think the chances, unfortunately, are low because Hamas is saying no. We had agreed on a program which would indeed release some of the hostages in return for a temporary ceasefire for a few weeks. America and the international community endorsed this plan, and Hamas is saying no.
So given that, does that mean that a ground invasion into Rafah is all but inevitable at this point next week? And doesn't that just mean that the civilian death toll will rise even farther?
Well, the only reason that we need to go to Rafah is to clean up Hamas, where the remainder of Hamas is. I want to emphasize, we have absolutely no desire to enter Rafah or enter Gaza for that matter. We left Gaza about 16 years ago or more, 17 years ago. We have no territorial claims on Gaza. We've got nothing we want to do with Gaza. We just want to live in peace. It's Hamas that attacked us from the very Gaza that we handed the Palestinians, and they say explicitly we're going to do it again and again and again. So essentially, we have absolutely no choice but to defeat Hamas. I wished this were not the case, but it is a very cynical and very evil organization, terror organization, and we just really have no choice.
And just to be very clear, does that mean that a ground invasion into Rafah next week? Should people be bracing for that sometime next week? And I know that there's going to be an attempt to try to get the civilians out of harm's way. How will that be possible? Where will they go?
Well, first of all, I cannot anticipate, what the precise military actions will be. I can say what I would do if I were prime minister, and I would proceed to let the civilians move away from Rafah to the north, to the area of north of Khan Yunis. There's a great amount of space there to afford for their movement. And then once the civilians have evacuated, yes, I would enter Rafah and clean up Hamas in Rafah. So that would be, we're talking about 2 to 3 months of the process.
Very quickly, because I'm getting a wrap, but is there really any safe place for them to go? You're talking about displacing these people to the north. Can you guarantee that that's safe, Mr. Prime Minister?
Yeah, there are safe havens that we do not attack because there's no Hamas infrastructure. This is not a good thing. I don't want to present this as if this is something that we want to do, that we enjoy doing. But if you had a terror state on your neighborhood, in your neighborhood, adjacent to where you're living, and they tell you, we killed your daughters, we raped your daughters and killed your sons, we're going to do it again, the only way to do away with it is to remove them. That's what we're facing. We have absolutely no choice. So, yes, that's what I would do.
All right. Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.